We got 3 brand new official Hytale images for terrain generation and a bunch of leaked old images from the legacy engine. We'll jump right into the official ones because this is what's most prevalent to the game, since the old engine isn't really relevant anymore. This is something John Hendricks, the executive producer of Hytale, tweeted out and shows 3 unique images of some sort of rooty underground area, which looks really cool. First image here shows what the cave will kind of look like when you see it from above ground. You're kind of walking up to it, and you'll see some platforms here that are raised kind of in between this tree root, and that's kind of the big thing that they're focusing on with showing this image, is the tree and root generation, as well as the different layering of elements that we'll see within this terrain generation. So nothing too spectacular to look at on this one, but this next one is where it gets really juicy, where we see underneath the terrain, we see all of the roots really come together. We see like a little pathway right here, almost like a bridge where there's an underneath part. There's a few details to look at, such as some light up what I have to believe is mushrooms. We see vines growing down, different type of greenery. I mean, these are technically vines as well as the ones growing on the tree. We see right here on the logs that on the underside, they have some roots growing. So not only are, I have to assume that these big logs are roots, but these big roots have smaller roots. So a lot of different texture variation that we'll see. I think it's a really big image to look at because we see the fog in the distance. This is a large cave system. There's a lot of surface area here to explore. And if we go to the final image here, this is really how big it is. And I don't want to count blocks, but wow, this is a giant cave system. One of the first things you might want to say when you look at this image is, where's the caves? Well, this is a terrain generation demo. This is not from the actual game that you and I would play. This is just to test how would this kind of underground root cave system spawn if we were to put it in the game, and it's looking pretty good. There's obviously a few mistakes. We see 1 or 2 blocks here and over here. Some of the cave systems have little weird openings that don't seem to have an entrance, so just bubbles within the cave. Obviously some things to smooth out, but as a whole, this is pretty cool to look at, and it is official imaging. John Hendricks in the bottom here, you'll see, says, also, I'm getting suspicious of the team. They're putting borders on the screenshots they share with me, almost like they expect me to share them. So this was just an internal image. This was technically never supposed to be shared with us, to the public, and then Budacat, the community manager, was like, hey, there's a cool border on them. Why not just tweet them as well? So that's how we got these images. Someone commented, 0 dirt variety under the surface, crazy work. And that was kind of sarcastic. And he replied, you're looking at a level designer's work in progress. They do that intentionally so that they can evaluate the world gen they're looking on, which is also why we're not seeing any cave generation within this, because if we have cave generation and they're trying to test how this underground root system will work, that would interfere. There were a lot of old Hytale images leaked. These were not official before. Someone did some snooping and found an old portfolio from this guy right here, Winghide. Just massive shout outs to him. He is a builder and level designer, environmental artist. He used to work on Hytale, does not anymore, but was part of the team for Hytale in the early stages and shares some of the early developmental images. So these are kind of what we see. The first one, I don't think you and I can do anything with. This is just a noise map, so we're going to skip. The next one is a top-down image of the savanna biome, which gives us more of an indication of what they were kind of looking like. We see on the top right here that there's a village within this, and we'll get more into this village with the later images. I still don't think there's a lot to look at here. We just see a bit of texture variation here and there, a lot of spotting on the terrain. The next one we see is, and you can you can definitely tell this was probably even before the trailer came out. This is a very early Hytale image, but take as you will with this. The next one is also just another savanna image. A lot of these images, there's not too much to get from, especially considering the date. This one I think is pretty cool. They've shown terrain color changes in different blog posts as an example of you being able to control the world how you want it. So they probably did this as a test to just see how that works. My assumption is that this image is a test generation for rivers, because the rivers are so smooth, they are super well connected. These are kind of the rivers that I want and would prefer to see in Minecraft. They're super easy to build along. They are super nice and winding, creating all of these nice inlets. And I'm hoping that these kind of rivers are also what we're going to see in the latest version of Hytale. The next one is of everyone's favorite biome, the magical, mystical, enchanted, oh, it says right there, Azure biome, featured on the trailer. I actually did not know that we had a name for this. The most interesting part about this is just the immaculate sky that we see. The next one is a practice biome. So this is a really cool, like Halloween spooky themed biome, and it's probably more of an example of testing the limits of what Hytale can create. I mean, we've seen these green gems before in a more earthy sense, and now we're seeing them used as a mystical lighting element with some of these darker trees. And once more, we see this very cool sky. This is a practice biome using procedural structure, so we see a lot more crazy stuff happening in this image. We see a bunch of spikes coming out of the ground. We see a green sky. I had a prediction that this was actually a test biome for Nexus. Nexus is one of the other planets that we see in Hytale that is home to Varen, the main villain of the game, and Void. And their main colors are green and purple, which we see right here. So maybe they were testing out, okay, how do we make different biomes for a different planet? Then we move down to procedural mini dungeons, and we're gonna kind of move through this as well. This is the end room design concept for a dungeon, where we see a bunch of different levers, switches, doors, bunch of cool details that I hope that we get to see in the latest version of Hytale. Campfires, different torches. Imagine a crazy boss fight with this lava pit in the middle. This is a successful room connection. I assume this is either inside of a dungeon where you are just going to the next room of it, or it kind of looks to me like this is more of the start of it, like you're entering the dungeon. We see that they used empty campfires, similar to how we like to do it in Minecraft, as shelving blocks. This is probably a similar structure that we saw with one of those top-down savannah shots. We see it's kind of hidden underneath the rocks, which could lead to some cool terrain generation, where if we're just flying above or using some higher terrain, we can't see that, but we have to actually go inside of the rocks and crevices to be able to find a dungeon. We see the underground terrain generation. We saw a few of these in the official blog post, but it's really good to see more of them. We see the dungeon generating right here below. I have to assume that cave generation is massively changed from the legacy engine. This is another aspect of it. The interesting thing about this image is, first off, we see the terrain block choice change from a light to a darker to a very dark color. I'm not sure what kind of block this is. And then we also see the ores. The ores have like a 3D texture that pop out of the walls. Closing out, we got some models and assets. We got an earring, we got a bracelet, some boat shoes, white sandals, we got some flowers. So these are all really old images, but I think images nonetheless are really helpful to have, especially when we have such a limited option to look at. I wanted to close out this video with a little fun fact about mob spawning. John Hendricks replied to someone talking about the different entrances for spawning, for example, a wither in Minecraft or the warden, and he mentioned that he can't say much to spoil, but the best spawning animation goes to Camp Trork, hands down. We've heard a lot of talk already from the team saying that there's more to the Trorks that meets the eye, and they're one of the more interesting camps to think about, even though they might not be as popular. A common theory people proposed after this was brought out was, what if they hatch from eggs? This image right here is the perfect example of why people are thinking that the Trorks are hatching from eggs, because this little cute baby Trork has an eggshell on his head. Now, what is the reason for a baby of an animal to have an eggshell on its head? I'm gonna leave that for you guys. If you want to stay up to date for whenever this summer blog post magically drops, stay subscribed and you'll get the news first thing. I'll see you guys in the next video.